first at how an end user of the Journyx system is affected by DCAA compliance. So let's go ahead and log in. Everyone who accesses the system will have a unique login, and you get to control the level of password security that's required for your company. All of the links and menu options that you see here are dependent on that user's login account. So each individual user can have a different level of access and viewability based on custom roles and their roles that you get to define and build based on what you need. When we log in, we're automatically directed here to Andrew's timesheets. While it's not uncommon for employees of many companies to get behind on time entry, DCAA auditors require proof of daily time entry. The official rule is actually time must be entered no later than 9 a.m. today for the previous day. So auditors also require information on who makes the changes and when. As a result, our DCAA toolkit includes options for keeping up with daily time entry and tracking all the changes made to the timesheet. As an example here, Andrew may have received a daily email reminder, either at the end of the day yesterday or sometime this morning, that his timesheet wasn't complete for yesterday. And we can see that he only has 7 hours yesterday. The toolkit allows clients to decide if and when to send those daily reminders. They are optional, as well as set custom daily minimums for the amount of hours each employee needs to enter. So in this case, Andrew was supposed to have entered 8 hours yesterday, and we've passed 9 a.m. today, and so he's gotten his reminder. Andrew is assigned here to a standard time entry screen that's a grid, but others in the company may have timesheets that require specific start and stop times, line item entry, time entered as a percentage of the total day, or some people may even have timekeepers who enter time on behalf of other users. The DCAA has not issued specific guidelines on the format of timesheets, so the type of time entry is your choice, as well as all of this information, these tracking columns and options that you see here. You can set these up and customize them pretty much in any way that you see fit. End users also have the option to collapse or expand these columns as they need to be able to view the information on their timesheet. All of the lists and selections in the list are specific to Andrew and what he needs to see. He has the option to track both project and non-project work, as well as time off, all on this one screen. He also has the option to set up memorized entries, and these are time entry shortcuts that persist from timesheet to timesheet. And the same area can also pull in recently used entries from previous periods. So quick ways to get his time entered. While the DCAA does require daily time entry, there are no specific restrictions on the period that needs to be used for timesheet submission and approval. So Andrew here is assigned to a weekly period. But this is something that you can customize for each and every user in the system. You can use a weekly, a biweekly, a weekly starting on Sunday, monthly, or a custom period that you define. So the time period for submission for approval is your choice. Now, one thing you'll notice about his existing entries, the DCAA has enforced a unique time entry constraint that we can see on this time entry screen in the form of a special corrections feature. While many companies are required to track changes to timesheets that are made after they're signed and submitted for approval, DCAA has taken auditing a step further and requires tracking and documentation of all changes to the timesheet. So here I'm short for the day, for yesterday, and what I really did is I came back to this internal and external review and feedback project and worked another hour. So based on the DCAA corrections level, I'm going to have to actually provide a reason for making my change. Back to this project. So it means that I've got to add reasons anytime that I correct my entries, and then managers and auditors can refer back to the changes in documentation and audit reports. This particular corrections feature, this level, is optional, and timesheet also includes lower correction audit levels, such as requiring reasons only after a timesheet has been submitted for approval. So it's really your choice, but we have had auditors require this of our clients, and so we have this highest level of auditing. Andrew can also add new entries by selecting a project or specific non-project work, and he has a couple of ways to do that. He can look through the tree. We can navigate through the hierarchy and choose his task or his non-project work. He can also search. And so we'll go ahead and, based on the project name, the description, or other information associated with the project. We're going to go ahead and do our workflow project. When Andrew selects the project, options in the other columns may be filtered based on that project selection. And so we can see, for example, that normally in his activity column, he might have a little over a dozen activities, but when he selects the workflow project, he only has a few. And so these filtering is based on the project selection, so that means these are activities that are appropriate for the type of project he selected, and they also are filtered for to be appropriate for the individual, so the type of work that he specifically does. So he wouldn't see somebody else's activities who does a different type of work. This filtering of the other columns saves time, and it also ensures that Andrew doesn't inadvertently pick a selection that's invalid for the type of work he's doing. So let's go ahead and fill out the rest of his timesheet. And I'm going to leave it just short of 40 so we can demonstrate another feature of the time entry screen. And we're required to enter comments for DCAA in this case, so we'll enter a comment. So when he goes to submit his timesheet for approval, it will always know to ask you if this is what you meant to do, just in case you accidentally hit the wrong button. We don't want to accidentally submit a sheet and then go through all the process of having to get it unsubmitted and so forth. We can see here data validation that his company creates, and it applies to, it is specific to each type of employee. And it helps to make sure he's entered his time correctly. So in this case, Andrew has a company rule applied to him that he has to enter a minimum of 40 hours per week. And of course, he's short. So let's go ahead and fix that. He will have to supply a reason in this case since he's making a correction. And then we'll go ahead and resubmit that sheet for approval. So this was an automatic rejection based on rules that his company has supplied for him. When he's completed and submitted his timesheet successfully, so no more automatic rejections, approval workflows determine the process for his time approval. These approvals can be derived automatically from your company org chart, or you can set them up manually. So we walked through entering and submitting time. Let's go ahead and take a look at the managerial view of the approval process. And again, we have a unique login for our manager. When Steph logs in, she can automatically see the numbers of timesheets and expenses awaiting her approval. She can sort those sheets based on any of the columns by simply clicking on them. So she can sort by name, or she can sort them by period, or reverse chronological period, and so on. If she has the option to approve these timesheets based on summary information, she can just click select all or click these individually to approve from the summary screen. But she may also be required to click on the links and view the sheets individually to review the details. So let's go ahead and look at the sheet that Andrew just submitted. Oh, just a moment. Let me refresh here. There we go. That's the one he just submitted. This sheet view includes all the information that our end user could see while he was entering his time. Your custom calculations for pay and billing calculations can also be seen here in rate reports that accompany the approval view. So maybe your payroll administrators want to review cost information, contract managers can review billable amounts, and so on. Staff can also review any changes made to the records by clicking on the notes icons next to each. So for example, we know we made a change here. And we can go down to the latest change. We see a correction, and she can go ahead and take a look at exactly why it needed to be corrected. As a supervisor or project manager, staff may know that certain contracts do not allow time to be billed, for example, maybe in less than 1 hour increments. So right now we're going to show how she'd reject a sheet. And we're going to say it's because the FAQ project up here, Andrew has booked time at 6.5 hours, and they're not allowed to do that. In this case, it's got to be, let's say, rounded down. So we're going to say cannot bill in half hours, move 0.5 from FAQ elsewhere. And we'll reject the sheet. When the sheet's been rejected, Andrew's going to receive an email notification, and he can go make the necessary changes. Or you may allow your supervisors to make these changes directly. Regardless of who makes the changes, all edits to the timesheet are tracked and logged in the Journyx system. This is a critical requirement for DCAA, and all auditors are going to ask to see this change log. None of our customers have ever failed a DCAA audit based on the time management process and data that Journyx provides for their audits. Today we're going to go ahead and make the changes as Andrew. So let's return to Andrew and update his time entry screen. We can see that the sheet status is now listed as rejected, and just below that is the reason that Steph provided for the rejection, so that Andrew knows what he needs to do to correct his sheet. For users who aren't required to track every change to an open sheet, this might be the first time that they're required to enter reasons for making changes to the entries. Let's go ahead and make our changes here. I know half hours. And we'll move the half hour to another spot and submit for approval. And now we see that the status has changed and it's submitted and back to Steph with our corrections. Andrew and any of his managers who have access to view his timesheets can also see a sheet history. Let's pull this up. And it provides details on when the timesheet was created, as well as all of the other approval details. Expand the screen just a little bit here. So we can see both the automatic rejection, let's see, rejected rule right here, as well as the rejection by his approver. We can also see other approval process details. For example, we can see that he has 2 levels of approval, a 2-tiered process. So when Steph completes her approval, it's then going to move on to Charles for another level of approval. So now that we've kind of looked at the approval process almost end to end, let's go ahead and move on to some of the other managerial tools we have. I'm going to jump to an administrator view for a moment, mostly because we're going to look at some overriding for the approvals. But these are the tools that you're going to show your auditors for proof of compliance. One of the first things that you'll need to show is proof of a formal approval process. So we're going to go back to approvals. If you require, I mentioned, if you require your managers to click through to the screens to approve, these checkboxes here for summary approval won't show up. And you can show your auditor exactly what process you use for managerial approval. So let's go ahead and pull up a sheet here for Amanda and pull up the sheet history again. So on the sheet, you can show your auditor the history of approvals so far. And we can see, for example, that some other manager reopened this sheet after submission and then resubmitted it for approval. And all of that's logged again in the sheet history. Right now, I'm logged in as an administrator in the Journyx system. And with administrator authority, I can jump in and override approvals for others. So we can see that this sheet has been approved at level 1. And so we're going to go ahead and approve for level 2. And pull up the sheet history again. And you'll see that even though Charles here the level 2 approver, I'm logged as the approver in this case because I overrode his approval and took it over for him. Provided that the actual approver, the person who actually approves it, is logged in the system, admin override is DCAA compliant. And it comes in handy, of course, when your regular approvers are maybe temporarily out of pocket. There are a couple of other tools that you can use to show auditors your process for monitoring time entry and timesheet submission compliance. The first of these that we'll look at is the daily compliance report. We'll go ahead and take a look at this week to see how our employees are doing on daily time entry. This tool includes scores for each user's timeliness in getting daily time entered. The scores are based on the number of hours time is entered after a daily deadline, and you can customize that, but of course we mentioned the standard would be 9 a.m. the next day. Zeros indicate time was either entered before the deadline or maybe it's just not yet due for the day. Our supervisor can also check general timesheet submission rate compliance using the Organization Compliance Viewer. And we've got Steph's group pulled up for now. The color-coded icons show which people in our department have already submitted sheets and who's late. And she can click on those icons to take action, such as send an email to late users to let them know they need to get their sheets submitted. She can also use these icons to keep track of how many timesheets she still needs to approve to close out the period for her group. You may also choose to keep paper records of signed timesheets for backup purposes. While DCAA does recognize the submit for approval action, that button that we pushed in software systems, as the equivalent of a signature, some of our clients continue to maintain hard copies. So if that's something that interests you, I'll just show you real quickly how you can pull and print some paper timesheet reports for backup. We're just going to look at it for a few users using the printable timesheet report. And the printable timesheet report includes options to print or email the content of the report for safekeeping. The last specific audit support tool that we'll take a look at today is Audit Log Search. Now, I mentioned that Journyx maintains a record of every entry that's created, edited, or deleted, along with a variety of other actions. This includes information on who took the actions or made the changes and when. This audit log will contain a large amount of data. So the DCAA tool set includes an option to search the log for specific information that may be needed. You might want it for standard monitoring processes or for providing an auditor with more detailed information that he or she requests. You can search by date, type of record, user affected, project affected, and so on. When supervisors and financial managers have completed approvals and reviewed the reports for the period, they can use standard integrations such as Journyx Account Link or customizable tools such as Payroll Rules Engine to process the data. They can then send that required information to financial systems for additional processing and close out the period. Just like other features in the Journyx system, these integrations are available via web browser and can be run by anyone who's familiar with your financial closeout process. As an example, some of our customers use Journyx reports to analyze the data from the period and export it to other systems. Timesheet includes text-based reports that can be run directly in a browser or report link templates for custom and graphical reporting in Excel. The browser reports can be scheduled to run on a recurring basis. They can be saved, they can be copied or emailed for distribution to others. Browser-based reports include a variety of types for time, expense, project status, and financial reporting. And they can be built from scratch or just customized by an average non-technical user of the system. So we'll kind of take a look how you do that. We're going to run a report showing time entry details for the period. And you can see various details grouped by users and types of projects for the period. They can be run in a variety of formats. including plain text for export, a printable format, and cube reports for Excel. Changing a report is as simple as clicking on the link at the top of the report. And then you can adjust things like the dates for the report. You can filter the data, add groupings and subgroupings. You can control which fields show up in the report or the order. Like we could move project to the first column in our data. Or we could change the report entirely and make it a summary report, remove all of the details, and just as quickly as that, produce a report that looks completely different. Journyx Report Link, an optional reporting engine for timesheet that allows you to tap into all the power and flexibility of Microsoft Excel pivot tables, can also be accessed straight from the Journyx Reports menu. And we'll jump real quick to Excel. Take a look at what some sample templates look like. Unlike a simple export to Excel, like our cube format, Report Link provides you with direct real-time access to your Journyx data from Excel. So you can build reports, add custom calculations, and then update your data at any time with the click of a button. This template shows a dashboard for utilization and cost information broken out by functional departments. You can customize the charts and graphs, and you can add fields and filters to the actual pivot table data. So with some basic knowledge of how to use pivot tables in Excel, your organization can access, manipulate, and analyze information in pretty much any way that's desired. The last area we'll cover quickly today is leave management. Because the DCAA strictly prohibits future time entry, it's important to have a way to manage leave tracking without entering time before it's taken. Managers also need a way to use this information to plan time off during holidays and peak vacation periods. And we've got this leave calendar view where you can mouse over and see what's pending and what's been approved. Notifications, again, allow managers to know when new leave has been submitted and when users had their leave approved or rejected. And you can switch to various views to look at everything in detail and to approve and reject the information. Most important for DCAA compliance here is that an approved leave request is not loaded in the timesheet until a period when the time is taken. And so if the user decides not to take the time off, he can just delete the approved leave beforehand. So today we've seen the Journyx timesheet features that are of most interest to our DCAA auditors. These include audit trails for entries, actions, and sheet histories. They include formal workflow approval processes and notations for record corrections. And finally, we covered very briefly the leave management in lieu of future time entry. You're very welcome to schedule a demonstration with us to see how timesheet can help you meet your compliance goals. While the benefits of implementing and using Journyx solutions vary based on the problems you're trying to solve, Journyx can help everyone to maintain and comply with DCAA standards, figure out who's working on what and when, and how this information allows you to work smarter. So that concludes our presentation for today. I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation back over to James so that we can finish up with some questions.
Thanks, Meredith. If you've not done so already, I would encourage you to go ahead and submit your questions using the Questions tab. And we'll spend this last couple of minutes covering some of the questions that have come in. Should we run out of time, I'm going to leave the electronic version open for a few minutes and let you continue to submit your questions, and then we'll get you a response by email. Our first question comes in from Phil. Phil asked a question, Meredith. He says, I recognize the value of tracking time, but I'm having some real problems selling it to my team. Do you have any suggestions for getting over that hurdle?
Sure. First of all, this is a common problem. Many people do indeed have this problem, but really for DCAA contractors, it's just not optional. I mean, first of all, so that's the biggest thing right there is you don't have a choice. Now, I realize that doesn't exactly encourage satisfaction with the process and the requirement, but it's just a fact that you have to do it. That said, really, the biggest two things that you want to do with your time entry process is make it painless but accurate. So that's what you want to balance when you're setting up a system. So really what we encourage everyone to do is start simple. And that means do your best for those end users who are entering their time to make sure that they have to capture the least amount of information possible. And where they do need to capture more information, try to make it more automated. We saw the memorized entries, or the entries where they pull from the previous week, so that they don't have to enter all that information. They really just have to add their hours. And then to the extent that you can automate it on the back end, you can manage a lot of the data, enter a lot of the data, automate through those, we mentioned the filtering on the columns when you choose a project, under the hood, basically, by your configuration with your administrators. And to do as much of that as you can so that your end users only see what they need to see and have to enter as little information as possible. Then, of course, you can also sell on the value of actually, entering the time. The fact that more billable hours captured leads to greater revenues, better planning wins you more business, and then my personal favorite, it allows you to just automatically give your manager a status report. They don't need to come ask you what you've been doing because it's all right there on your timesheet.
Thanks, Meredith. Our next question comes in from Faye. Faye says, if we started tracking time using the Journyx solution, how much of our current data could we actually start with?
That's entirely up to you. The Journyx system includes a variety of ways to get data into it from other systems, and whether you're using, like a software, or you're using some kind of semi-automated solution with like Excel spreadsheets or text files or whatever. Journyx includes standard import tools that allow you to get information into your system. We also have some standard integrations if you're using QuickBooks or Microsoft Project or ADP or Paychecks, et cetera. Wherever you have that data, that current data that you're using for your basic time tracking process you have now, there are a variety of ways for getting it into the system. So whether you just want to do it yourself and use those standard import tools, which really don't require any technical knowledge whatsoever, it just tells you what columns of information you need to have in your Excel spreadsheet and just suck it right in, or you want to do some more automated process where you do an integration that pulls the data from your existing systems. Either way, you've got options with Journyx, and you can just give us a call to discuss what systems you use and what you'd like to be able to do.
Sounds great. Let's try to squeeze in one really easy question here. Mike's got a question. He says, is there a limit in your software to the number of fields that I can report on?
No. First of all, there's a huge number of fields that come, with the system that you can report on pretty much, both the text-based reports and the report link reports that we showed. But then you also have the option to set up as many custom fields as you need, and these are associated, with the users that we mentioned, or the projects, or activities, or any other item that you're tracking in the system. So you can set up these custom fields with any information that you want. You can then control who can report on them, or if they're going to be shown in reports at all. You can set up different field types, so these fields can be text or numbers. They can be select lists or multi-selects. But basically, you control what information is tracked along with your primary data in the system. And many, many people, it's very, very common to set up lots of custom fields. For projects, you can track customers and programs and so on. And then with select lists, you can ensure, for example, that the data is uniform, so that people aren't typing in typos and making it difficult for you to then collate that data in your reports. So yeah, there's no limit on the custom fields that you can track, and then you can very easily control who can report on them and include them in reports. Fantastic.
Thanks, Meredith. Well, we want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. We recognize your time is valuable, and we're going to need to cut our webinar off. But there's still some more questions coming through, so I'd encourage you to go ahead and submit your questions, and we'll respond to those offline. I'd also encourage you to visit our website, shown there on the screen. We've got a series of webinars going on right now covering DCAA, a couple of the topics including how Journyx helps DCAA clients manage employee time and projects, the top 10 reasons to outsource your finance and accounting operations. Got a really great one, a consultant who is offering a webinar on how to win and successfully execute on defense contracts. So I encourage you to visit the website, look at our existing webinars, register for those. Our goal is to help you to be successful, And part of that success is both garnering and keeping your government contracts. And so we want you to execute on those. Again, we want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us today. We hope this has been helpful to you, and we hope we can continue to be of assistance to you as you gain and keep government contracts. Have a wonderful day today. Thanks again for your attendance.